Combating the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and really both the federal, state, and local governments that are trying to make us take poisonous vaccinations. And last night when I was watching this swine flu piece, and they were showing people in the 70s line up for the swine flu shot, and it wasn't even, the syringe shot. It was one of those mechanical ones where they literally shot it into your arm. I was just shaking my head saying, oh, my God, I hope this doesn't happen again. We're talking to Tiffany in Vegas about ways to get around taking these vaccinations. Continue, Tiffany.
Yeah, if there is ways to do it, I mean, I was looking, I know they're saying that they're going to use it off-label. You'd mentioned that the other night, and that was prompting me to give you a call about it. Because if it's off-label, it's kind of like it's not FDA approved. They can go around certain things, if they've approved something like an example of any drug that they make, it's only approved for, let's say it's approved for a headache. But then if it's off-label, they can use it for, any other application other than a headache. Maybe it's in your blood, like an aspirin, let's say. But some of the things I was just looking at, like for just a flu vaccine right now, it's if you've been immunized before, if you've had a reaction to a flu vaccine, if you are like allergic to eggs or any of the products that they use to make the flu vaccine, and if you have that history of the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Those are some of the things that are currently in place that if it's like you have that history, you say, oh, I have that, I can't have the shot because it's made me sick or I have these problems. But if it's off-label, they might just try to even get around that anyway. Also, if you have a heart condition, if you've got a chronic heart condition, you're not supposed to have shots like that.
Well, you know what? Bottom line is nobody should be having these shots because the side effects are much worse than the supposed saviors. For example, this Gardasil shot in the UK, of course it's over here in the United States as well, they admit that it has injured 1,300 girls, and these girls are 12 and 13 years old, sometimes younger, and then they said, well, it saved 700 lives. Meanwhile, they can't prove it saved any lives whatsoever. If it were these 700 and these women were dying of cervical cancer, which is what they're claiming, they would be well into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 70s. You know what I mean? And they are ruining these girls' lives at a young age. Some of these girls became paralyzed in the face, the arms, the body, and even the legs. It is just unbelievable to me. Thank you for the call, Tiffany. Let's jump to Gary in Michigan. Gary, you're on the line. Yes, sir.
Appreciate what you're doing. I'm a fellow broadcaster, so I know what you're doing is no cakewalk, man. Thanks for, just being a voice. I've been listening about 4 months now. Before I'd even heard of you and Alex, I was starting to kind of wake up on my own to the fact that the two-party system was only really working for itself. And I was spouting off about these things on a message board, and somebody mentioned I should check you guys out, and I did, and I watched the Obama deception. And let me tell you, man, it was like waking up from the Matrix. I mean, it's like I started breathing for the first time as all these things that I'd been observing, inconsistencies started falling into place and making sense. And I started being really in your face to people around me with this information about the New World Order and Bilderberger and whatnot. And both parties are owned by the bankers, and they just looked at me like I was buck nuts crazy. And then I began to see that most times what you've got to do is start waking people up slowly.
You find common ground with somebody. You find a niche issue that you can both agree on, that both parties are corrupt and that the lobbyists shouldn't be giving, these people this much funding, and you don't like the bailout, but then you explain what the bailout is and who runs the system, and then maybe you can get into the Federal Reserve System. That's why America Freedom to Fascism is such a great movie. It gets people interested in a subject everyone's interested in, taxes, and the legality of the IRS and what they do. And then it brings you all through this journey of the corrupt Federal Reserve System into the North American Union, the Real ID Act, and then the Verichip, and your mind is just blown. And it is a great way to get people involved. I mean, once again, I talk to people and I see where I can hit them hard. If I'm talking to somebody who seems like pretty hardcore Christian and religious, I'll try to discuss the Bohemian Grove with them, especially if I'm near a computer and I can readily bring up the video of the cremation of care video or the annals with the Bush boys in it, Walter Cronkite, Jack Kemp, Newt Gingrich. This tends to shock people into wanting to at least check out the information.
Right. Well, see, that's That's fantastic. It's a great strategy, and I'm seeing it working around me. I had a lady who I worked with at the radio station look at me, like I was crazy 2 months ago, and I've been setting these little brush fires with her, and like you said, finding common ground. And yesterday she came to me, and another common ground issue we were talking about, and it's just like the light went on, and we were talking about, the two-party system is really just a one-party deal. And she said, "You know what? You've converted me, man. I believe it."
Yeah.
And I'm talking to another guy today, and he's actually an African American gentleman who he looked at me and he said, "You know what, man? I'm beginning to think Obama's just a puppet."
Oh, really? Is he finally getting it, huh?
Yeah, and I'm just like, and he said, "You need to watch the Obama deception." And I said, "Brother, I'm 4 months ahead of you, man." So,
well, let's talk about that, because anybody who doesn't see that he's a puppet, there's a really easy way to kind of at least put the thought in people's head. You say to yourself, well, where did this guy really come from? Well, in 2004, he was only a state senator. Now, most people don't even know what a state senator is. They assume that's just a regular senator. And you say, no, man. You got 2 senators per state. There's only 100 real senators in this country. Obama wasn't one of those people. A state senator is more like a congressman. You have several and, multiples depending on how many people are in your state. So he's a rather low-level politician until 2004. And then in 2004, he actually just runs for his first Senate spot. However, the Democratic Party loves him so much, they give him the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention before he's even won an election. Think about that. And then you say, and then you say to yourself, wait, he's not even a senator. Now he wins his Senate seat. The Senate seat and term is a 6-year term. In less than half that time, he announces his run for the President of the United States and wins, and is selling out rock stadiums. He's on the cover of T-shirts. He's on the cover of magazines. He's been being promoted as a worldwide leader. What do you think happened? How can any objective person see that route to power, especially for an African American gentleman, and say that the fix isn't in?
Right. Thanks for what you're doing, man.
All right, thank you, Gary. I appreciate the call, brother. Let's go to Jesse in Texas. Jesse, you're on the line.
Hey, what's up, mate?
How you doing?
Anyways, just here. Anyways, I wanted to kind of bring up 2 comments. I have a fantastic idea for a song. It's by Warzone. It's called "The Sound of Revolution." They're a skinhead band. They're anti-fascist. Awesome stuff. You should have that as far as, music goes. And here's another question. Okay, back in 96, okay? You remember when you had WCW and Ted Turner owned...
And they had the NWO, right?
Oh, yes.
They're in my next movie, actually. The NWO was the only way to go, and it was led by Hulk Hogan.
Nash and Hulk Hogan, yeah.
That's right. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. And you know what? And they ended up sucking in a lot of the big stars. Sting became a member. It was a whole thing for a couple of years.
Yeah, and you know what? I was thinking maybe that's a
mechanism to kind of let people poo-poo the New World Order. Well, that's the way I'm going to approach it. Listen, back in the day, man, I thought people that believed in the New World Order were not only conspiracy theorists, but the real New World Order was this wrestling group, and that's what I thought it was. And really, that's probably one of the ways I'm going to start my film. This is what they perceive it. And I've got, Hogan out there being like, all of a sudden, brother. What's that?
Yeah. I said basically that's what got people into the whole, the whole thing of, maybe there is such a thing, and people, possibly started, accepting it, and to find out it's actually real, that's actually kind of scary. And you know what? Like, I was kind of thinking about this, and I thought, wait a minute, this is a perfect thing. So people can actually, sucker people in. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, you know what? I think it's more along the lines of making people, when you say the New World Order, think of the wrestling thing and not look at it as a political organization or a mindset for a one-world government. But another thing I'm going to be doing in this film is not only showing, George H.W. Bush's vision of a new world order in the 90s, but Kissinger's vision in the 70s, Hitler's visions, before and during the war, the visions of H.G. Wells and other authors, and then